Our State of the U.S. segment tonight. House Republicans are looking for a redo on Obamacare repeal. The House Freedom Caucus announced their support for a revised health care bill. The Freedom Caucus, as you remember, was largely responsible for derailing the last health care bill, which was a bad bill. But is this bill any better? Take a look.
We posted an amendment to the American Health Care Act yesterday. This amendment was a result of constructive conversations among our members that focused on how we can do more to lower costs for everyone. What this amendment does is it gives states more flexibility and tools to reduce premiums and increase choices. And it does this while maintaining and preserving protections for people with pre-existing conditions. This is the important point. Those protections remain on the books, even as we add new ones. The goal here is to give states greater flexibility if they want it to lower premiums. We've not yet made any decisions on a vote.
Joining me now, former surrogate for the Trump campaign, Republican strategist Scottie Nell Hughes. Scottie, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Liz. And sometimes, don't you feel like you just want to repeal and replace Congress, especially after we've listened to this mess of healthcare debate for the last 3 months, 100 days, basically?
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't like this 2.0 version of Obamacare repeal any more than I liked their first version. I mean, I still don't understand how exactly it's going to lower premiums, how much it's going to cost, how we're going to pay for that, or how exactly it's going to take the power of healthcare out of the government and give it back to the people. They haven't explained any of that.
But have no fear, Liz. I guess somebody explained it to the Freedom Caucus with the newest numbers coming out saying that 25 to 30 yes votes will now be needed, closer to that 216, 18 to 20 of those being new. So just call up your friendly Freedom Caucus member right now, and maybe they can explain this to you.
Right. I mean, I feel like they caved. I feel kind of betrayed by this. I mean, I don't like it. I guess I don't understand either why President Trump is on board with this. I mean, he himself says that this 100-day mark is an artificial deadline. I think he knows that if it's 5 days past, if it's at 105 days that they vote on health care, in the whole scheme of things, it's not going to make a difference if it were 105 days or 100 days. Why don't they do this right? Why is he supporting this bill?
Well, I think he's supporting it, but he's also being very realistic and saying it might be as late as September that we vote on this. But I think he honestly is very disappointed. He's a businessman. He believes in efficiency. And while, yes, I feel very sorry for those journalists who are following him right now with bags under their eyes because they've only slept 2 to 3 hours since the day that he was sworn in, the truth in all of this is that they're not doing their job either. Journalists and Congress themselves, neither one are making this clear. It's almost like they're purposely garbling up the verbiage to make sure that we don't understand it. I will say this, though. President Trump did kind of rely on Congress, and these are folks who have campaigned on it since 2010 to be elected on repealing in place. It supposedly passed a piece of paper last year that President Obama vetoed, and yet once again we're finding ourselves disappointed. However, when you look at the clarifications, you do break this down. It does say that this is going to have more competition with markets, but it uses the word regulate, allowing states to regulate insurance. And anytime you are a conservative and you hear the word regulate and you don't already have red flags pop up in your head, then you might want to readjust.
Right, run far, far away. You hear that word, turn around, hightail it out of there. So and that's the same thing. I mean, with these waivers, this amendment that Speaker of the House Paul Ryan was talking about, these waivers that the state can apply for, they have to ask permission of the Health and Human Services Secretary if they can withdraw their states from some of these mandates, one of which is not raising premiums, or keeping premiums, I should say, at the same level for people with pre-existing conditions. I mean, Scottie, is it just me, or does it seem like all the power is still in the government? These Republicans in government just think it's better if they, as Republicans, have the power versus if Democrats in government have the power.
And it's that same mentality that got us in trouble in 2008 anyways. I think across the board we agreed that it was the irresponsible spending of Republicans as well as Democrats that allowed the first financial collapse. And it's issues like this, I think, that allow the American mistrust of both parties. And Republicans are going to have to figure out quickly how to fix this problem. We are just another year, oh my gosh, to the next election, Liz. And already you're seeing the problems and the feedback. And Democrats are just frothing and fear-mongering on this. If we don't do something that actually helps the American people and separates us from them, we're going to be in real trouble in 2018.
Right. And I mean, not even from the political standpoint, if you put the politics of the thing aside for a second and think about just the American people, I mean, we've all suffered 25% increases in our health insurance premiums. That's on average. Some states, I think it's Arizona, is as high as 113% premium increases. This doesn't even take into account the skyrocketing deductibles, meaning we're paying all this for our premiums, then we can't even reach our deductibles, so we're paying for our health care out of pocket here. We don't have any choice. Many states, I believe it's a third of counties across the country, you only have a choice of 1 or 2 different plans on the Obamacare exchanges. It's terrible. I mean, they need to stop worrying about their own seats in Congress, and I mean that both metaphorically and not. They need to stop worrying about their own seats and think about the American people. Think about giving power back to the people and maybe relinquishing it themselves.
Well, but that's the thing. The problem is while you say they need to stop worrying about their own seats, actually, the number one way to guarantee that you have a seat in Congress, that you get your job again, is to do what the American people want. So
Right.
I am all for them caring about what's going on, what we're saying, because we're the ones who ultimately vote for them. Here in the state of Tennessee, Knoxville, in fact, I think in 6 weeks, will be the first government to have zero health insurance ability to be offered, because they've been completely eliminated every single option to their government employees. We are going down a track fast, and while some Republicans and some conservatives say just let it run out on its own, Liz, like you stated, you and I are paying skyrocketing premiums. I cannot afford another month of a $1,500 premium for a family, like most Americans. Yet somehow Congress, on their very padded Cadillac plan, they seem to not be in too much of a rush to fix this problem.
Right, and here's the other political part that I don't understand here is under Obamacare, since Obamacare was passed, 30 million Americans, wrap your mind around how large that number is for a moment. That's how many people were kicked off of their health care plans, or who couldn't keep their doctor if they wanted, like President Obama promised. That's how many Americans were kicked off, told their health insurance coverage wasn't good enough for the standards under Obamacare. That number, you never hear about that number, Scottie, but what you do hear Democrats saying, oh my goodness, if we repeal Obamacare, in the next 10 years, between 14 and 24 million people are going to be gasped without health insurance. Well, that number is less than the number of people that got kicked off, yet Republicans never even bring that point up. To be honest, it's like they're scared.
Liz, you're absolutely right, and you kind of just shake your head. You're going, where? I guess this is Common Core math at work with these liberals right now, because when you have anywhere from only 8 to 12 million who are currently on the Obamacare exchange, I go, but then how can you tell me that 20 million people are going to lose their insurance? Listen, yes, I agree. Pre-existing conditions are something that I'm personally lobbying for, but I'm a realist. Somebody has to pay for it somewhere.
Right.
When you have these high-risk areas, we've got to figure out a way. Now, President Trump, being a businessman, thinks that by bringing in more corporations, by encouraging retail and spending in the United States, we will have more money across the board to spend in areas like this. Yeah. I like his optimism, but I hope we have a couple second and third plans just in case that doesn't necessarily happen.
The optimism I appreciate. This policy, I do not. I don't have high hopes for it. But Scottie, we're out of time. Thanks for being here today.